remove these things and let's go to a more interesting case. So this is the incremental case. And this is a quite nice one, because what it does is we basically simulate running NannyML in a daily fashion. We have a data set that consists of data for many days. And what we do is we split this information up and we're gonna write it to a file system. And we're gonna do that so that every day of data is put in a directory that corresponds with a single minute. It'll be clearer in a second as soon as we run it. But basically what it'll boil down to is we'll configure NannyML to look for a folder that might have a variable name. So it's a templated path. And when doing that, every minute NannyML is going to run. It's going to look for a specific location on the file system. It's going to read the information that's listed in there. Then it's going to crunch the numbers and it's going to add all of the metrics that it calculated for that given day into the metrics database. And that information is going to become available within Grafana as well. So we're basically simulating running NannyML once a day. But here we're just speeding up that process to do it in a single minute every time. I think the most interesting thing here is to have another peek at the NannyML configuration file, because a couple of things have changed here. Not that much, but just a few small things. So in here, for example, the analysis data, you can tell now that this analysis data now contains a couple of parameter values, right? So template values. And when NannyML is running, it's going to dynamically fill in these values. And this will then basically form a path. And at this path, we are going to be looking for data. Now, why do we do this? The main reason is like it's a very simple way to deal with like variable input or deal with inputs that comes from another process. So you might have an ETL process that is configured to take the model inputs and outputs, crunch some numbers there, do some data preparation, and then write these files out into a fixed location, for example, once a day. And if you vary the name and you make the directory where they're written depending on the actual date that you're running the calculations on, so that you can basically put all of these data files next to each other. Then you can configure NannyML to basically adhere to this principle and use date information in order to read the information, to read the data for the inputs. Also important is that in here, we are going to ask NannyML to run in a scheduled fashion. So if you recall just a moment ago, when we were running NannyML, it actually stopped after a single run, right? It said status exited 0. So it ran successfully and then just shut down. So running NannyML in a repeated fashion, you might, like, for example, if you put this on Kubernetes or something like it, you might schedule it using a cron job, for example, and just have that same container booting up, running once, and then exiting again. That's definitely a way to do it. But we also provide a way of having some kind of scheduling built within NannyML itself, and you can control it here. So in this case, we're gonna select NannyML to run with a fixed interval, and we're gonna select to run it once per minute. So it will wait for a minute after it executed and then execute again. Another way of doing this is, for example, using cron expressions. That works as well. Do note that we are running a different example here. So this is a regression model that we're trying to run. And we're going to try and predict what the price of a car is. Simple case. And then if we do the same trick here, so we Docker compose up, it's going to create all of the same things, but with one additional container called the incrementer. And the incrementer is going to just take care of splitting up the data for us, as I mentioned, into this pattern where we can read it once every minute. Now you can see a lot of stuff is going on here, and I think it might make sense for me to just filter out the logs as well. So in here, you can see that NannyML ran once. The run was successfully completed, and NannyML is now sleeping for a while. And I'll leave NannyML to it then. And in the meantime, in my other window, which I will share in a second, I am going to log in back into Grafana. Which is now a different instance. And if you take a look here, then you can see that we have a single, let's say a single data point, because we've just calculated things for a single day. And as we wait for a second, like at 16, normally this second, yep. So NannyML has just kicked off again. It's crunched some numbers, and if we now refresh this, then you can see that we have new values coming in here. And if we repeat this whole process on a daily basis, we will get a nice timeline out of this, and nice time series with all of the relevant metrics that we want to calculate for our for any of our models. And this is basically like, this is a very simple demo case that we have here, obviously, and there's a lot to expand on this as well. But it's like a first glimpse at what it might be to use something like NannyML, for example, within a production case. And we're actually still very interested in finding out how people would like to integrate within their environments.